It is 2 in the morning, -12 degrees. A blizzard is tearing through the mountains, and every living creature with any sense is somewhere warm, somewhere safe, somewhere out of that storm. Every creature, except one, a dog, sitting completely still in an open cemetery. Snow piling on his fur, wind cutting through the dark, not moving, not making a sound, just sitting there, staring at one single spot on the ground. And when people found him the next morning, alive, right where he had been the entire night, nobody could believe what they were seeing. And the reason he was there will genuinely stop you cold. Stay right here, because this story gets so much deeper than you think. And if you are new here, welcome to Logic Unlocked. Hit that subscribe button right now and tap the like button before we go any further. It helps this story reach someone who really needs to hear it. And trust me, this one is worth it. His name was Pavlik, a medium-sized brown and white dog with floppy ears and eyes that somehow looked like they had already seen too much of the world. He belonged to an 81-year-old man named Mykhailo, a retired schoolteacher who lived alone at the edge of a small mountain village in Ukraine. Mykhailo had no children. His wife had passed years before. Most of his old friends were gone too. His world had gotten very quiet, but about 6 years before he died, someone abandoned a puppy on the road right outside his house. Mykhailo took that dog in the same night, named him Pavlik, fed him from his own plate, built him a little wooden shelter right beside the front door. And from that one decision, everything changed for both of them. The whole village watched those two together, and everyone said the same thing. They had never seen anything quite like it. Mykhailo walked to the market every Tuesday, and Pavlik walked right beside him the whole way. Every evening, on the porch, that dog sat pressed against the old man's leg, like he was afraid Mykhailo might disappear if he let go. And every single morning, without fail, Mykhailo would open the front door and Pavlik would shoot out like a bullet, run wild circles around the yard, and then come tearing back and sit right at the old man's feet. 6 years of that routine, 6 years of one quiet, lonely man and one completely devoted dog, living their small and beautiful life together at the edge of the mountains. Then, in November, Mykhailo passed away. He died peacefully in his sleep at 81 years old. When neighbors came to check on him after not seeing him for 2 days, they found Pavlik sitting at the front door. Not barking, not scratching, just sitting perfectly still, looking up at every person who came near as if he was waiting for someone to explain where Mykhailo had gone. The village came together and buried Mykhailo in the small local cemetery about half a mile from his home. And the night of the funeral, Pavlik disappeared. The neighbor who had been feeding him came the next morning, and he was simply gone. Tei Serched, they called for him. Nothing. And then someone walked up to the cemetery, and there was Pavlik, sitting directly in front of Mykhailo's grave, completely calm, completely still, like he had always known exactly where to go. They brought him home, fed him, kept him warm, and the next morning he was gone again. Back to the same grave, back to the same spot, every single day, without fail. Families started taking turns bringing food to the cemetery so he would at least eat out there. Someone built a small shelter near the grave so he would have somewhere to rest. But Pavlik did not always use it. On the coldest nights, he just sat in the open, right in front of that grave marker, as if moving even a foot away was something he simply could not allow himself to do. Then came that night in January. The temperature dropped lower than it had in years, and a blizzard swept through the valley with no warning at all. A young man named Mykhailo, who lived near the cemetery, had been quietly keeping an eye on Pavlik for weeks. He woke up at 2 in the morning, looked out at the storm raging outside his window, and immediately thought of the dog. He pulled on his coat and boots, grabbed a flashlight, and walked out alone into the blizzard. And when he reached the cemetery, Pavlik was exactly where he always was. Sitting in front of Mykhailo's grave, a thin layer of snow resting on his fur, eyes wide open, alert. Alive Danilo. Tried everything. He had food in his pocket. He had a blanket. He got down on his knees in the snow and practically begged the dog to come with him. Pavlik looked at him, sniffed his hand slowly, and then turned back toward the grave and sat back down. Danilo stood there in that blizzard for a long moment, snow swirling around both of them. And he later said it was one of the most quietly devastating things he had ever seen in his life. He did not force him. He walked back home through the storm, grabbed the thickest blanket he owned, came back, and draped it gently over Pavlik. And Pavlik just Let him do it. He sat there under that blanket, in the snow, in the dark, in the freezing cold, and awaited. By morning, Pavlik was still there. The blanket had shifted. The snow around him was packed down flat, where he had sat the entire night. But he was alive, and he was exactly where he had chosen to be. Danilo took a photo that morning and posted it with a simple message. This dog sat in the snow all night to stay near his owner's grave. His name is Pavlik. He has been here every single day since the funeral. No dramatic caption. No hash. Just one honest post from a man who had witnessed something real. Within 2 days, it had spread across all of Ukraine. Within 2 weeks, people in 30 countries had seen it. Millions of people who had never heard of this tiny mountain village found themselves crying over a dog they had never met. And most of them could not fully explain why. But, deep down, they knew exactly why. Here is what this story is really about. And this is the part that Logic Unlocked wants you to think about. Because it goes further than most people realize. Dogs do not just live with us. They attach to us. Deeply. What Pavlik was doing is what researchers who study animal grief call prolonged attachment behavior. And the science shows that when a dog loses their primary person, the grief they experience mirrors human mourning in ways that are genuinely startling. They stop eating tea, withdraw. They return again and again to the places connected to that person. They wait. They search. They do not simply forget and move on. Pavlik was not confused. He was not lost. He knew exactly where Mykhailo was. He had been there at the burial. He had seen everything, and every piece of evidence we have about how dogs process the world tells us that he understood, in whatever way a dog understands, that this was the last place his person had been, and this was where he needed to stay. Pavlik was eventually adopted by a young family in the village who promised to walk with him to the cemetery whenever he needed to go. And they kept that promise. He still visits. Not every day anymore. But he goes. He sits quietly at that spot for a while. And then he gets up and walks home. Some people find that bittersweet. Like maybe he was starting to forget. But think about it differently. Pavlik figured out something that a lot of humans spend their entire lives struggling to learn. That you can carry grief and still choose to live. That loving someone who is gone does not mean refusing every good thing that comes after. He sat in that snow for months because he needed to. And then when he was ready, he walked on me. Not because Mykhailo was forgotten, but because Mykhailo would have wanted him to be warm. Now, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment right now. Has a pet ever shown you a kind of love or loyalty that you still think about today? This story hit millions of people right in the heart, and I genuinely believe the Logic Unlocked community has the most thoughtful answers anywhere on this platform. Leave your story below. And if this video moved you even a little, please share it. Share it with someone who loves their dog. Share it with someone who has lost someone they loved. Share it with anyone who needs a reminder that real loyalty is still real. Stay curious, stay kind, and we will see you in the next one.